Watch right now on the Front News Project. The long-range Neptune strikes the temporarily occupied Crimea, and this is just the beginning. A breakthrough by the Ukrainian armed forces in the Belgorod region destroyed enemy helicopters. Exclusive from Pokrovsk, the enemy incinerates the city with aerial bombs. Fiery, hot and blazing. Footage from the front line, watch right now. The bloody war continues. The war that Vladimir Putin and his entourage unleashed on Ukrainian soil. The heroic resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces and the entire Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom continues. Greetings, this is Front News. With you is Vladimir Timoshenko. In the next 30 minutes, you will find the truth about the war, which our journalists are uncovering from the hottest battle zones. So are you ready? Then we begin. And we start right away with exclusive material. The Ukrainian missile Long Neptune is already striking the temporarily occupied Crimea. The Kerch Bridge, prepare yourself. However, more details on this a little later. Meanwhile, Russia is now also terrorizing Kazakhstan. That's where 3 UAVs with the inscription Jaren fell. These are the same drones Putin uses in the war against Ukraine. And also a new breakthrough by the Ukrainian armed forces in the Belgorod region. Z-Publics hysterically report that the Ukrainian army has taken control of several more settlements. And before that, in the Belgorod region, the Ukrainian armed forces destroyed 4 enemy helicopters. Considering all this, the situation in the Bryansk region remains very tense. There, they are also expecting an offensive by the armed forces of Ukraine in the coming days. All the details in our report.
A new successful operation by the Ukrainian army. Russian propagandists are forced to acknowledge the capture by Ukrainian forces, the village of Demidovka in the Belgorod region. In addition, the Ukrainian armed forces are also assaulting the settlement of Popovka and are already in the village. Zewa correspondents note that Ukrainians are advancing in the Belgorod region. According to the German publication Bild, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to advance on 3 more villages in the 10-kilometer border zone.
Moreover, according to reports from the Russian side, Ukrainian defense forces struck the logistical component of a bridge, which creates serious logistical problems for the Russian troops concentrated in this area. In other words, it is essentially a threat of operational encirclement.
The Special Operations Forces press service reports that our troops have destroyed 2 Ka-52 helicopters and 2 more Mi-8 helicopters of the enemy. In addition to actions on the ground, active combat operations are taking place in the air. The General Staff reports a strike on the occupiers' headquarters in the Kursk region. As a result, about 30 invaders were eliminated. Ukrainians noted that the destruction of this element of the Russian military infrastructure reduces the enemy's ability to conduct combat operations in the Sumy and Kursk regions. Ukrainians are also actively operating in the Donbas, managing to eliminate not only the enemy army, but also Putin's propagandists.
According to the Russian side, it was a so-called double strike, using HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems. Moreover, the Russian side was forced to acknowledge the colossal number of casualties among the personnel of the Russian army. In addition to the Russian army personnel, others were killed as a result of the Ukrainian Defense Forces' strike on permanent deployment points. The operator of the Zvezda TV channel, Andrei Panov, and the driver of the film crew, Alexander Kuzmin, or Kelly. Additionally, it is reported that as a result of the strike on the permanent deployment points of the occupying army in Mikhailovka, Zvezda correspondent Nikita Goldin was seriously injured.
As the Ukrainian side has repeatedly stated, the armed forces strike exclusively at military targets on the territory of the Russian Federation. However, even the Russians no longer hide this. Civilians often suffer. And all because the occupiers themselves direct drones at their own citizens instead of strategic targets.
Drones that are linked to GPS. When they enter the range of electronic warfare, their course is disrupted. They head anywhere but towards the target. That's why they often end up in residential areas, crashing into hospitals, schools, and so on. Yes, The armed forces do not hesitate to strike at social facilities, but it makes no sense for them to have a drone fly 100 kilometers and hit a hospital. I repeat, the enemy drone entered the zone of our electronic warfare. It lost orientation and it falls wherever it happens to be.
Considering the shortage of air defense systems, they are trying to cover exclusively all strategic objects. Moreover, it should be noted that by strategic objects, they mean Putin's residence in Valdai or in Sochi.
And now let's talk about the war that is literally crossing borders. A drone with the inscription Jeren fell in Kazakhstan. These drones, as is known, are used by Russia for attacks against Ukraine. Since February, there have already been 3 such stray drones.
The Russian Federation has more repeatedly made official statements about territorial claims on the northern regions of Kazakhstan. Moreover, I do not rule out that this is a possibility. Military political pressure on Kazakhstan with the aim of increasing the extraction of Kazakh oil and gas. Against the backdrop of the fuel crisis in the Russian Federation related to successful attacks by Ukrainian UAVs on oil refineries.
It is quite possible that this incident is nothing more than another provocation by the Russians to disrupt negotiations, where they failed to pressure Ukraine's partners to withdraw troops from the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions, as well as from Donbass.
Amid talks of a ceasefire, Russia is striking civilian targets and residential areas in Ukrainian cities. In particular, Kiev is once again under attack. A Shahed drone attack claimed the lives of 3 people. Drone debris burned the place where a family of displaced persons from Orikhiv was temporarily residing. There, a father and daughter were killed, and his wife was seriously injured. Another drone destroyed an apartment in a high-rise building in the Dnipro district. A woman was killed there. TSN correspondent Mariana Bukan visited the site of the bloody events. Her chilling report. Watch further.
Shocking footage that has spread across all social networks. After the enemy Shahed hit the high-rise, a person is heard screaming in the apartment. This is how the apartment looks on Sunday during the day. The elderly woman who lived here died. We patched up the walls.
She was sleeping in the far room. It hit the near one. It was ablaze. Neighbors from our building and nearby ones came running. But all the doors are armored. The guys were hitting and couldn't do anything.
Elena and Yuri, the closest neighbors of the woman who died from that hellish night, say they have already recovered.
Alive.
Alive and well. That's the most important thing.
The most important thing.
In Elena's apartment, volunteers have already covered all the broken windows with film.
And when it hit, I woke up, but my curtain saved me. The curtain was held down by a table and all the glass stayed on it.
In Yuri's apartment, the blast wave not only shattered the windows, but also completely destroyed the balcony, knocked out the doors, and tore off the window frame. Volunteers are also helping with the cleanup.
I just want to say hello to my mom.
This 15-year-old volunteer is named Salamia. She is the daughter of Valentina Kamaiko, the host of the program Breakfast with 1+1. And this is far from her first cleanup after enemy shelling in the apartments of Kiev residents.
I've been volunteering at these sites for about a year now. It's actually the anniversary of my first debris clearing.
Throughout the entire day on Sunday, a fire truck remains at the house on the left bank of the capital. Rescuers are unable to extinguish the fire in the spaces between the roof and the apartments. Here on the streets, all the neighbors are sharing the horrors with each other of the night they endured, and the cola looks...
When it exploded, for some reason I thought it was like on Leningrad Square, because it seemed far away. But when I looked out, I saw it was already burning here.
It banged, I got so scared I immediately ran to the corridor.
My balcony doors opened by themselves completely. I didn't sleep at all. We didn't sleep at all. Very scary.
Yet most of the residents in this high-rise are not planning to leave. They say they want to stay overnight, even if it's without all the windows but in their own apartments. We will outlive the Russians. And we will win. And we will win. God bless our armed forces.
And now it's time to analyze the operational situation on the much-suffering Pokrovsk front direction. The situation here is traditionally tense to the limit. On the Pokrovsk direction, the aggressor attacked our defenders' positions 41 times in the areas of the settlements of Pantelemonivka, Oleksandropil, Vodjane Druhe, Yelizavetivka, Lisivka, Sukhye Yar, Kotlina, Udachne, Kuspenivka, Preobrazhenka, Andriivka, and in the directions of Malinivka, Novo-Oleksandrivka. 8 combat engagements. At the same time, they are still ongoing. Yes, the occupiers are trying to wipe Pokrovsk off the face of the earth and are bombarding the city with aerial bombs. Explosions in Pokrovsk are heard continuously. Yet there are still many people on the streets who are forced to take risks, going out in search of water, food, firewood, and simply the opportunity to charge their phones. The day before, the Russians targeted right in the center of Pokrovsk. And it was at this time. A film crew from our colleagues at the television news service was there. All the details in the exclusive report by Notaria Nagornaya.
And these are civilians walking down the street. The most popular transport in Pokrovsk. Today, a strong wind is helping us a bit. There aren't that many FPV drones. It seems like there's no quiet time, not even a quiet moment. No, something is constantly exploding. Igor, are you okay? To put it mildly, not the best place for a walk. Just an ordinary hand of a TSN cameraman.
Do you see the step? It's quite high, of course, but you're still young. It's just right for you.
It's nothing. Maybe it seems to me, Aunt. Aunt Valia has been declared the main optimist in the shelter, right? Yes, yes. Your lips are painted.
Yes, why talk about it? Why was I outside?
And while we are in the basement, 3 air bombs fell in Pokrovsk. But by local standards, they are said to be even small.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
And also this week, the residents of Ukraine's Crimea experienced real horror. At least 15 explosions thundered in the city of Dnipropetrovsk region. The enemy massively attacked with Shaheds. According to preliminary information, thank God, there were no casualties. However, the destruction is significant.
Since early morning, emergency repair work has been ongoing at the impact site. Volunteers from a charitable organization are distributing necessary materials to people from destroyed apartments and houses for urgent repairs. The main priority at the moment is to cover windows and roofs from the wind and rain. According to the city council, the blast wave shattered more than 4,000 windows. In total, more than 50 apartment buildings, 3 dozen private houses, as well as 3 schools, a kindergarten, hospitals, and several enterprises were affected in the impact zone. The post office, a store, a service station, and in addition, communications have been disrupted. 7 houses are still without gas and another 7 without water. At the moment, utility workers are trying to repair the networks, while residents of the affected houses are covering windows and roofs with film and boards.
We have absolutely nothing on mine. We have absolutely nothing. My husband was all cut up, back, head, arms, all covered in blood. Well, the windows were blown out, all the glass, everything is sticking out of the walls, no flowers left, absolutely nothing.
There are 14 adults and 16 children in the hospitals. According to the doctors, 3 of the injured are in very serious condition. These are 3 men. They are in intensive care with severe penetrating wounds, fractures, head and abdominal injuries. 1 child is in serious but stable condition. Doctors report a trend towards improvement. Among the 23 injured children, there are no life-threatening conditions. I would add that there could have been many more injured, including among students and preschoolers. After all, the missile hit near the school and not a single window remained intact. Casualties at the institution were avoided, only because education in all the city's institutions takes place exclusively in shelters.
And now we move to the Novopavlovsk and Gulyapol directions of the Russian World Front. Here it continues to destroy, kill, and maim. In the Novopavlovsk direction, our defenders are repelling 13 enemy attacks in the areas of the settlements of Konstantinopol, Razliv, Dnipro, Skudnoye, Dnipro, and Burlatskoye. In the Gulyapol direction, the aggressor carried out 8 assault actions in the areas of the settlements: Privolnoye, Novoselka, and towards the open field. Airstrikes hit the settlements of Shevchenko, Novodarovka, Novopol, and Gulyapol. And now the topic we announced at the very beginning. So, the Ukrainian cruise missile Long Neptune, with a range of up to 1,000 kilometers, struck the oil complex in Tuapse. The arrival was not only spectacular, but also very effective. But the most important thing is something else. This was the second, not the first instance of using the modernized version of Neptune. This was reported by the Minister for Strategic Industries of Ukraine, Herman Smetanin. According to him, the first time Long Neptune attacked a military target of the occupiers in Crimea, which specific target it was has not yet been specified. Only one thing is clear. Long Neptune has gone on the hunt, and for the enemy it will be very, very painful. All the details in our next report. An explosive night in Moscow's Krasnodar region. Oh my. The video shows fuel tanks exploding at a Russian oil refinery in Tuapse, about 1,000 kilometers from the front line.
We are arriving at Tuapse station. For 3 consecutive days, the Russian oil refinery has been continuously burning. At this time, President Zelensky announces the successful use of the extended Neptune at an impressive distance of 1,000 kilometers for domestic missile engineering. Such a system was made by Ukrainian enterprises. This is a national product.
In January 2022, the director of the design bureau, Luch, Oleg Korostelev, speaks about the successes of military designers against the backdrop of the anti-ship missile Neptune. Among them is the anti-ship missile, which went on combat duty back in 2020. The Ukrainian Neptune, with a warhead of 150 kilo and a flight range of 300 kilometers, is capable of locating and striking enemy ships of various classes. The first target of Neptune was the Russian frigate Admiral Essen and several other enemy ships. Neptune reached the peak of its glory in April 2022 when it struck the Russian cruiser Moskva with 2 missiles, forcing the occupiers' Black Sea Fleet to hide in the docks.
Due to the presence, we don't have...
Precisely because of the presence of Neptune with us, the Russians did not attempt a naval landing on Odessa in 2022. If you have anti-ship missiles, it's not worth the risk.
During the full-scale war, our designers managed to develop a new modification of the Neptune that works against ground targets with a new guidance system, an increased warhead of up to 350 kilos, and a range of up to 1,000 kilometers. In 2024, the Ukrainian surface-to-surface cruise missile is regularly mentioned in reports about the destruction of enemy targets, ammunition depots on Russian territory and occupied areas, oil terminals, ferry crossings, and military factories. However, the shortage of foreign long-range weapons and delays in permissions to strike deep into Russian territory are forcing missile developers to extend the Neptune.
The anti-ship missile uses the MS-400 engine. Currently, there is also ongoing modernization to equip it with the MS-430 engine, and accordingly, to increase the range of this missile to about 1,000 kilometers.
In the context of war, the developers of the Neptune maintain heightened secrecy and do not provide any comments, as the Russians are constantly shelling likely locations of the Ukrainian missile production facilities. Before the full-scale war, Russian intelligence services actively hunted for the technical documentation of the Ukrainian missile complex. In 2020, Ukrainian counterintelligence agents detained a spy recruited by the FSB. Pushkin, all right. Currently, they are trying to learn as much as possible about the production of the Ukrainian missile. Military experts predict that Ukraine is capable of producing several dozen Neptunes monthly. Although their quantity heavily depends on imported components, scaling up the production of long-range weapons could significantly impact the course of the war.
Theoretically, they can also be used against airfields. And against command system bases, meaning various headquarters, this is the logistics base. This means the enemy will either have to move these elements further from the front, which will require moving a lot, meaning far away.
The modernized Neptune, along with other Ukrainian developments, Trembita, the Peklo drone missile, and strike drones could significantly weaken the Russian military-industrial complex this year. And the main advantage is that Ukraine does not need permission or coordination from Western partners to use its own long-range weapons. Therefore, the hellish chaos in Russia will only increase over time.
Well, now the analysis of the operational situation on the Orikhiv direction of the front. The enemy is becoming more aggressive here as well. In the Orikhiv direction, the defense forces successfully stopped 4 enemy attacks. The enemy attempted to advance towards the settlements of Shcherbaki, Lobkova, and Kamyanske. They are suffering and actually surviving attacks from Russian drones. Residents of 3 villages in the Kushuhum community of the Zaporizhzhia region say that enemy hardware flies at them both day and night. The Russians are targeting energy infrastructure and hunting civilians. People are being asked to go outside as rarely as possible. But the locals still plant gardens to the sound of explosions. Journalist Kira Ovis from TSN will tell you more about everything.
They suddenly fly out and buzz like mad wasps. This is exactly how a resident describes the attack of Russian drones on the village of Kushugum.
Very loud, very dangerous. Very loud, very dangerous because they started reaching us in the pre-drone era. It has become dangerous to walk the streets. Elena. With
The warming summer residents and inhabitants of the Kushugum community are increasingly busy in their gardens, although they admit it is dangerous. Elena recalls how one day she and her husband were almost attacked by a Russian EFPV drone. We hear it buzzing.
We hear it buzzing. My husband shouts drone. I, of course, quickly ran into the house and my husband hid behind a large piece of wood. It hovered for a while and then suddenly flew back. And as far as I know, it later got tangled in some wires.
But Irina only goes out into the yard with her dog. She says he is the first to hear when a drone approaches. And it starts.
He starts to approach, begins to cry, and we go because we know something is going to happen. We lock ourselves in, our dog rushes out, they fly both day and night.
But the main target of the Russian terrorists is the community's critical infrastructure. Recently, a swarm of enemy drones attacked an energy facility and people were left without power for almost a week. There was no room in the points of invincibility, not even an apple could fall.
In the first 2 days, 50 people came in at once and set up about 70 of their gadgets. And our transformer burned out. Thank God we have a spare one.
They were sitting everywhere. They not only charged their devices, but also worked. They came with laptops.
Children were studying probably, right?
Children were studying. Those who work remotely, for example, in the city of Zaporizhzhia. They needed it. They came here. We have internet.
The energy workers were operating in extremely dangerous conditions because the Russians were conducting repeated raids.
They are doing great. And real heroes today. Because they are working under drones. While they were working this week, they were bombed, roughly speaking, about 10 times.
In the 3 frontline villages of the Kushugum community, 12,000 people currently reside. So far, there has been no mandatory evacuation of children announced here. However, some parents are taking their little ones to relatives if possible.
After all these arrivals, strong explosions, yes, we took the child to a safer place, to the grandparents. It's very scary. The child was very frightened. And we, even though we are adults, find it very difficult. It's very audible. They have been flying recently, even during the day.
The community is asking people to limit their time spent outside. As a safety measure, mass events are prohibited in the villages. However, people say spring has come, so despite the enemy, they will still plant their gardens.
And now let's move to the Kupiansk and Lyman directions of the front. The bloody bacchanalia of the enemy's army continues, and here, in the Kupiansk direction, the enemy 25 times assaulted the positions of Ukrainian units. In the areas of Stepna Novoselka, Zarizove, and in the directions of Petropavlivka, Pischanove, Nova Krugliakivka, Bohuslavka. Additionally, there are 19 more combat encounters ongoing. In the Lyman direction, today, the aggressor attacked 27 times in the areas of populated localities. Nadezhda, Kolodets, Mirna, Yampolivka, and in the directions of Novoserhivka, Novo, Olhovka, Dronivka, Grigorivka. Currently, there are 10 more combat encounters ongoing. And now about the true heroes of this terrible war. For example, the youngest hero of Ukraine among the border guards. Vladek Stepanchuk is only 19. But in a critical situation, it was he who showed his iron will and saved lives. 21 comrades leading them out of the Russian semi-encirclement. How did all this happen? Correspondent Anna Makno from KTSN will tell us.
When they said it was my Vladek, I was just in shock.
He was just in shock.
Surprised teachers and proud instructors of the Border Service Academy.
It's very pleasing that in our service and in Ukraine in general, we have such youth.
And he speaks about himself simply.
My name is Vladek. I just turned 19.
The title of Hero of Ukraine and the Order of the Golden Star, Border Guard Vladek Stepanchuk received for what he did at 18 in October 2024 near the Russian border.
At that moment, he took command of the military personnel, so that the enemy could not surround them, could not capture them. Thanks to his actions, 21 military personnel were saved.
Vladek volunteered as soon as he reached adulthood. He submitted a report at the Border Service Academy, having studied there for a year after the military lyceum. I, of course, asked him, argued, cried, but he said, "This is my decision. I have decided I am a man. This is my duty." His parents are also military personnel. His father has been defending Ukraine since 2015. Despite the anxiety, they supported their son. He served in several directions. Vladek says he realized what war is after his very first combat mission.
This is no longer training. This is truly war where people die.
That day, his unit was setting up positions near the Russian border, and suddenly a crazy shelling began. 2 comrades were seriously wounded.
The bleeding was severe.
When the enemy got too close, they received the order to retreat, and then communication was lost. To help the wounded, they went into the forest strip and met comrades from an adjacent position. They were all older than him, some almost 3 times his age.
They were a bit disoriented. They were also under heavy shelling. Everyone was in a panic, just like me. I saw that no one could start making any decisions.
To devise the safest escape plan, he recalled everything he was taught at the Lyceum and Academy.
We had automatic rifles, and a few guys had grenades. We took up a defensive position, started fighting back, and were in a semi-encirclement. And I realized that we just needed to move with combat.
Simultaneously, we restored communication and helped the wounded.
We took them by the arm and started moving quickly. We were covered by the adjacent guys we met. When I started to realize that they were almost shooting at us from behind, I understood that no, we needed to retreat quickly from here.
Thanks to the right decisions, Vladek and 22 border guards managed to reach their positions in a few hours.
Everyone, like little children, was just very happy to have survived.
Vlad's family knew there was a difficult situation, but they didn't guess what exactly had happened. Vladek always says that everything is fine, don't worry. They learned more only when they saw their son's name in the presidential decree awarding the title of Hero of Ukraine. Vlad's father had just arrived on vacation at that time.
He didn't believe it. He kept rereading it. He tells me, "Marina, but you understand there is no higher award than this." He was very proud.
Indeed, he was very proud. And I see it.
And I see it. I still can't understand for a long time what's happening. What is this all about? I couldn't understand why.
They were stunned. At his school as well. They themselves are learning from Vladislav.
This is my student, Vladek. He is a hero of Ukraine. I couldn't believe that an 18-year-old child volunteered and managed to organize all of this. And to lead out such a number of our guys.
And the academy.
Pride. Everyone at the academy was in such a positive shock.
But Vladek himself believes that it is a collective award, because if his comrades hadn't acted in unison, it could have ended in captivity and death. He notes that everyone who is now defending Ukraine is a hero.
I believe that everyone should go and defend what is most precious to them. Their family, their country, their land.
That's all for today, but very soon on the Front News program. New, unique materials from our journalists from the hottest spots of the war, obtained so that you know the truth. This was Vladek Timoshenko with you. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.